Hello friends, I'm Gaurav Singh and today we are going to discuss about the REST. So in the Salesforce context, before we discuss REST in the context of Apex, I think it's better to have a basic understanding of REST. What is REST? Why we use REST? What are the main characteristics of it? So let's begin. So what is a REST? So as the full form suggests, it's a representation and state transfer. So why we use REST? And that's the first question that comes in our mind when we think about REST or SOAP. So traditionally, if you have two systems, both systems are independent and working on maybe written on a different programming language, then how those two systems will communicate with each other? So for that particular purpose, we must have some kind of method or some kind of mechanism so that those two systems can communicate with each other. And REST is actually does that thing for you. There are other ways also like SOAP, but I think SOAP we'll discuss later on. Right now we are discussing REST. So exactly the same thing. If two systems independently working and like to exchange the data or the informations, then there is a way, and that is that particular mechanism we call it a REST. Um, Compared to SOAP, it's very simple and lightweight. So SOAP, I think when many years back, I would say, when there was no REST, there was a another mechanism the software systems used to use, that was SOAP. So just to make things simpler or simpler or making things lightweight for the web services, the REST was introduced. Now the main characteristic of REST. So the main characteristic of REST is the first one and the most important one is it's a stateless. So once the request is served, the server doesn't remember if the request has been arrived after a while. So the entire operation will be a stateless operation, and that's why this is stateless. Now, as I suggest or at the outset of this particular presentation, I mentioned that the multiple systems or multiple layer of multiple systems can be integrated through REST. So this is particular thing we'll see in the end of this presentation. I have one diagram which actually represent or very clearly represent how does it work. So we'll by seeing that diagram, it will be very easy for you to understand how does it work. The next characteristic of the REST is representation of the resource. So it is a kind of there must be some representation of the resource which you like to access. So it uses a uniform resource identifier to map the resource data. The third one, opposite to SOAP, which uses XML, REST uses JSON and XML both. Now this is the diagram I am talking about when we discuss about the first point, multi-layered systems. Now look at this particular diagram. Here we have two applications, one Android based application, one iPhone, and some other browser app we have. So what we are doing here, these in the middle of this section, you can see that there are some HTTP methods, the methods like put, get, post, and custom params. So by using all these methods, we can exchange the data or the information between the main server, which is on the green box, and other applications. Now, how this particular activity works in an actual environment, how we make a request. So making a request, we must use a std verb. When we talk about std verb is nothing but a kind of method we use, like put, get, post. If there is any custom, that's about std verb. A header we must have, which contains the information. By passing that information, we get the access of that resource. A path to the resource, we must know the path on which we have to hit and retrieve the data. An optional message, body containing data. So I have discussed here in details std verbs, as I said in the previous slide, that the std verb, these are the four methods. You can call it a method, you can call it a word. So that's in nomenclature, up to you which you like to use. So get, post, put, delete, these are the four things. For DML, you can do on the other system, or other systems can do in your own system. So that can be done. Now coming to the header and accept parameters. In the header request, the client sends the type of content that is able to receive from the server. So simply as it's clearly clear from the statement itself, we are receiving data in a particular format, and that should be mentioned in the header. Now this is a very good example. As you can see, that get article 23. So what we are doing here, we are getting some information that is in the form of article, and where that information there, maybe that information ID is 23. Now we are accepting this information in two format, text or HTML. So we are defining the format on which we are going to accept this information. If the information won't be exchanged in this particular format, then probably we'll able to see the error where the data would not be exchanged, because the system which is giving us that data not giving us in the HTML or text format. The path. Now if you like to go to some place, you must know the exact address. Similarly, when we are calling out a web service, we must know the exact URL which we are going to hit to get that data. So this is nothing but the actual address. By hitting that particular address, we are retrieving the data. Now content types. Content types is kind of a response type, right? So 200, for example, in the case of get or in the case of put, we get a response type 200. That means okay, and there is no error, and the data is given to the system which is looking for that data. Now REST integration. The important thing while writing a REST class, you should remember that the class should be global. Because why it should be global? Because there are some other system going to access your class. So if it's a kind of private class, that particular system will not able to access it, and that's why it is important that the class should be global. Uniform resource identifier it should have. Now the business scenario or the practical which we are going to do with the help of workbench, that's a scenario I have taken where I am integrating I'm going to create a REST resource, and I'm going to get the data from that REST resource in the workbench. So let me begin. 1 minute. Okay, so hi guys. So this is my own personal log. Let me logging into this. So for example, I like to create a new class. So as I said, if it's a general Apex class, we won't have to mention these keywords, but if it's, as we are doing a integration which is a REST based, so we have to mention REST resource. Now under this REST resource, we have to create a class. Before that, we have to define a path or URL. By hitting that URL, another system will retrieve the data. So we can give it any name. So for example, I am giving it a name show on account date. Now I am adding a star here. Now adding a star here means that it will fetch all the records under account. So there are two things which you remember. If you are creating a REST resource, you must mention a kind of a this REST resource @REST resource in the beginning of your class, and you then define the URL. By hitting that, the data can be retrieved. Now coming to the next thing, in this one you will create a global class. As I said, the class should be global so that another system can able to access it. So I'm giving it a name, for example, account, creating a one instance. So that's how we have created a small class. Now what we like to do here, we like to send a HTTP request, not HTTP request, HTTP get method we like to execute. So we will get HTTP get. That's the keyword we have to use. Now once that will be done, now we have to create a one static variable or a one instance we have to create, and that instance should also be global. I'm giving it a name, and let's keep it a static list. Count get count. Under this instance, I'll get a list. So I'll create one list. I'll get all the record in that account record in that list. I call it a ACC list. What exactly we like to bring into this ACC list? So here I write a query ACC list equal to the actual query, select name, let's take ID, name, phone, from, account, and what we are returning, we have to return the ACC list. That's what we are returning here. Okay, so let me save this. Okay, there is some error. So the error is coming. So the reason of this error, we are not returning anything. So here we are returning now, and we'll save this one. So the class is saved. Now we'll open Workbench. Here comes the Workbench. And test this class or this REST. This Workbench, we are in the production. I'll simply log in into Workbench. This path I need to copy. Now directly I'd like to jump to REST Explorer. Now here I have the option of doing many things. So for now I am using this one, Apex REST, and this is the REST resource which we have created. Now I'll simply execute this one. Now these all are the account records I have in my system. Now if I like to see the raw response of this, I can see it from here. So that's how the REST works. I hope this will help you in understanding the REST, and in next video we will do the actual integration with the system. This is again an integration, but again it's a Salesforce available tool which we have used to do this integration. So thanks guys.